So all the blacks and Asians and women and gays who are out buying guns in record numbers and getting carry permits are doing it because of drunk white guys in the Old West.
Yes. Yes. Because of crazy crackers with guns in the 1800s.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio.
Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode 44, brought to you by Cook's Holsters, American-made custom Kydex holsters with a lifetime warranty and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. CooksHolsters.com. Today we've got a special show for you, a special roundtable with three of my four contributors joining me today to discuss the aftermath of Tuesday's election. So stick around. We'll have all of that right ahead here on Armed Lutheran Radio.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
With those words, our founding fathers changed the world. They launched an experiment in freedom, where common lawful citizens are free to speak and gather and worship as they choose. But first among those freedoms is the one freedom that makes the rest possible. For 130 years, we've worked to preserve freedom first. I'm Wayne LaPierre of the National Rifle Association.
Welcome back to this special episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. We're joined by three of our four contributors, Sergeant Bill Silvia, Aaron Israel, and Mia Anstine. Pastor John Bennett couldn't join us tonight. He's traveling to visit a dying family member, so please keep the pastor and his family in your prayers. This is our only our second roundtable, and it's a first for Mia, so welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Our merry band includes people from really all sides of the political divide, except for the pro-Hillary side. So let's start with your thoughts about the election results. What did you think? What did you think was going to happen? Were you surprised at the end? What was your election night like? Bill, we'll start with you. You were in the pro-Trump camp from the start, pretty much, right?
Well, once it came down to him, yeah, I was kind of a Cruz fan myself.
There you go.
From Texas, but what was my night like? I was at work, and we were wondering what was going to happen, if anything was going to happen. It was, to be perfectly honest, it was kind of weird because you would think most law enforcement would be very conservative. But, working in Dallas, it's a pretty big city, and it's pretty divided. It's kind of 50-50. So it was weird to have CNN reporting the election results in the break room and then go into one of the offices where they had TV on Fox News, and you could walk back and forth and look at each screen and go, there should be the same, but they're not. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little disconcerting, but...
Were you surprised at the outcome?
Not at the outcome, but just how the reporting of it. Even Fox News was very... They seemed like they were not... It seemed like all along up until late in the evening that it was... everything was pretty skewed towards Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was expecting her to win. And... like I said, from law enforcement perspective, me and several other officers were talking about starting new careers because she was effectively going to gut law enforcement and basically say everything that we've done for decades is wrong and basically legitimize everybody who hates us,
right?
More so than Obama already has. So, I mean, it was... I mean, I'm happy with the outcome, not just because Trump won, but just because she didn't.
Right, right.
You know, like I said, from a law enforcement perspective, she's about as criminal as I have ever dealt with.
Yep.
So,
Mia, how about you?
Yeah. Honestly, I was kind of like an ostrich with my head in the sand all day on election day. I didn't want to see. Everyone has been inundated with it, so it was kind of overwhelming. And as I told you guys, it's deer season. I'd been out hunting, and to come home after a day of hunting, I really wasn't interested in watching the election. I just wanted to know who's going to win. And I think I even mentioned, like, I'll be in touch with you Wednesday because I want to know the results. I wasn't into the anticipation, but I went to bed without looking at the polls. And in the morning, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, and I had a million Snapchats from social media and friends and stuff, and the first one was somebody had taken a picture of the television, and I'm half awake, I couldn't see, and I was like, what is this? Is this real? And started messaging friends like, is this real? Is this really what happened? Because honestly, for the past 8 years I've been voting, and my candidate hasn't won, so I too was like, okay, this is rigged. This has got to be rigged. And I really felt the media had an insane bias, and that they were pushing people the direction they wanted people to vote, and with their misreporting of information. And I just thought for sure that it was rigged and he wasn't going to win. So that was my initial reaction, was like, oh my God, he won. Now what?
Aaron, you're our resident political junkie, and you were in the Never Trump camp. What was your night like?
Well, being a Never Trump guy, I've been saying for better part of a year now that of all the people that we could have picked to beat Hillary Clinton, we picked the one guy that probably isn't going to be able to. And if you would have asked me even up to a month outside of the election, I would have said that she was going to trounce him, no problem. But I, like all the other Never Trump people who are eating crow, wildly underestimated how much people hate Hillary Clinton. I mean, and the story from the turnout is that the Democrats didn't turn out. There was fewer people that voted for her than Obama by a huge margin. Same thing for Trump, but there were just more Democrats that didn't show up than Republicans this time. And so, I mean, watching the election live, expecting it to be done by like 9 o'clock and have to deal with Madam President for 4 years, I was watching between Fox News and MSNBC, and just the sheer shock on the faces of the Rachel Maddows of the world just made it. I mean, I wouldn't plan on staying up all night, but when they were saying too close to call at 9 o'clock, I was like, oh man, he's probably going to win this thing. I can't believe it, And then just watching them fall apart when the returns kept coming in, and they called Florida and then Ohio and then Pennsylvania. I'm like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And then, the reaction on social media, because I follow Twitter and I'm on Facebook a lot, as y'all know, and just the reaction from some of the liberals that I'm friends with was, for lack of a better word, it was pretty delicious. So even though I still have my misgivings about Trump, to be sure. Never Trump is a thing I put kind of in my past, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I hope that he's going to do great things for us, and we'll talk about some of those going forward. But I'm really glad to see that Hillary is not going to be our president, and so I join even the most hardcore Trump supporters. I mean, the liberals are making me want to buy a Make America Great Again t-shirt or something,
Right.
Because it's just the craziness that's come ever since. It's kind of been hilarious. So I'm glad that he won, and I hope we can hold his feet to the fire. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a little of that. When we come back, we're going to talk about reactions to the polls and the protests and the media reaction right after this here on Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi, I'm Bob Main. Now that you have your concealed carry license, I think you and I probably both know that class probably wasn't really training. Have you ever thought about getting some training beyond your concealed carry license? Well, that's why Ben Branham and I decided to call our classes Beyond Concealed Carry. We're going to teach you how to move and shoot, how to shoot one-handed, even how to shoot and make hits without the use of your sights. And if that's something for you and you think you'd like to take advantage of that, as a Self-Defense Radio Network listener, you can get nice discounts on the classes and the subsequent video programs for reinforcement. All you have to do is visit the listener discount page at selfdefenseradio.net and put in the password SDRN, all lowercase. Again, the listener discount page and all lowercase SDRN. Hope to see you at a class soon.
Welcome back to the special episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. All right, we're talking about the reactions to the election. What do you think was the biggest reason that Trump won so big? I mean, I think even the people who thought he would win thought he was just going to squeak this thing out. Was there one or two things that stand out in your minds? You know, why did this turn out so big for him? Bill?
The two things to me is I think most people are kind of fed up with politicians and the system, and they went with, Trump because he's not a politician. He's not part of the system. Is he perfect? No, but really no politicians we ever had are. I mean, there are some that, in retrospect, you go back and you go, hey, President so-and-so actually turned out to be pretty good, but, we won't know. We'll find out in the next 4 years. But the other thing is, I think so many people just couldn't deny, even if you were, on the Hillary bandwagon, that there's so many allegations, there's so many investigations, there's so much stuff. Whether you believe them all or not, there's got to be, statistically, there's something to be said that, yeah, she's done something. At least one of these things has got to be true because, so many allegations, so much stuff. I mean, you go back through her history and it's like, wow.
Yeah. Mia, what do you think?
Well, I agree completely with the Hillary and the corruption. And one thing that I've even told people as an example is, our country has such a huge divorce rate, and it's because people don't put up with stuff in relationships, and they don't learn to work stuff out. But it amazed me how her supporters were willing to put up with her lies, her deception, all this deceit. And whereas if it was their marriage, they would have been kicked out of that a long time ago. It just doesn't make sense to me because they're not looking at religion, or they wouldn't be voting for somebody who's pro-abortion.
Right.
It just the whole thing of that. And I mean, obviously for me, if you look at Benghazi, that's a big thing. And I know that my liberal friends say, "Oh, it was only 4 guys." Well, it was, and they were important people, and they're people's families, and you can't say only, but for me, I think a lot of people are tired of the corruption, and not just with her, but with a lot of politicians, and I think they're just fed up with it.
Aaron, what do you think?
I think that everyday hardworking Americans, college educated, not college educated, they keep throwing out that term like it's really that big of a definition, but whether you have college education or not, I think that people who go to work every day and try to provide for their families, who haven't swallowed the progressive agenda, taken it whole and said, hey, I'm for all of these progressive policies. They're tired of being called racist. Mm-hmm. They're tired of being told that they hate homosexuals. They're tired of being told that, that they're stupid by people who have a progressive agenda just because they don't agree with them. So this was a backlash against the Democrats overreaching on social policies and saying, hey, we're going to let boys into the girls' bathroom. We're going to force the gay agenda down your throat. We're gonna push gun control. All of these things that they've been trying to do for the past 8 years, and everyday people who maybe weren't involved in politics when it was more of a pill pastel thing. This contrast, the Democrats actually showing who they are over the past 8 years, has really irritated a lot of people, and they're tired of being treated that way. And so this was their backlash election, and the middle class working Americans who turned out in this election, that was their message: is, hey, we're tired of being told that we're bad people just because we don't agree with these liberal policies, and so here's us pushing back.
So everybody just fed up with the last 8 years, and they just didn't want to see 4 more of Obama, really.
Yeah, I think this was a huge referendum on the Obama administration, and people saying, hey, You know, I mean, because you even look at like Clinton, like he was a big liberal just as much as Obama, but he lied about it and he didn't push as much progressive policy because he was trying, you know, even he ran as a conservative when he got reelected in the 90s. But Obama there's been no doubt about what he is every day of his presidency, and people are seeing that and they're like, hey, this doesn't represent me, you know,
right?
And this has been the backlash.
Yeah, the people who said they disliked both candidates, 70% of them broke for Trump.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Why do you think the polls and the media got this so wrong? Because going into the night, and everything you heard for weeks was that Hillary was going to roll with this. He wasn't going to have a chance. All the missteps and all the things he'd said and his temperament and blah, 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 blah. And they completely blew it. They weren't even close.
I don't think you can poll a lot of the Trump supporters. I mean, you ask some of them, hey, because, I mean, he's got a lot of bad things about him that people didn't want to be associated with. And so you might ask somebody, hey, are you voting for Trump? They're like, heck no. But when it came time to it on election day, they're like, well, you know, given what I know about Hillary and what I don't know for sure about Trump, I know what I'm getting with her. I don't know what I'm getting with him. So I don't think they would have answered that poll question the right way, but they ended up voting anyway. So.
Right, and we know how, you know, the media and how other people, some, you know, in being in line with people to vote, and you don't know who the people around you are, and some guy comes up and says, hey, did you vote for Trump? I mean, we've seen people beaten up, we've seen people abused and called names and treated badly and, you know, embarrassed on television. Why would they answer truthfully to a pollster?
Exactly.
Well, and it depends on the poll, too. I mean, let's be honest, the media is not the fair and, you know, what they're taught to be. You know, you're supposed to be fair to each side and just report the facts. That's not the case anymore. The media today, print, you know, radio, TV, whatever it may be, for the most part, they all have an agenda, and that's all they care to show. They're not there they're there to spoon feed you what they want you to think, when they want you to think it, how they want you to think it. It's not, you know, here's what happened, decide for yourself. They don't do that anymore.
Right. They took a side.
Yeah, it's pretty biased, the media, and it's not just CNN or just one station. All of them are very biased.
Yeah, they basically took a side. They, instead of being the, you know, hold the people in power accountable for their actions, they basically, you know, threw their lot in with the Democrats and worked as hard as they could to get Hillary elected. And it wasn't just the media that got it wrong. I mean, conservatives got it wrong, too. I mean, I was just listening to something today, Ben Shapiro, I think he's one of the Never-Trumpers, but he was saying he thought Hillary was going to win 300 electoral votes and win the popular vote by like 5 points, and he wasn't even close. So it wasn't just the media, there was the conservative intelligentsia on our side who had this. They had convinced themselves too, maybe because of what they were hearing in the media and from some of their liberal friends, that Trump had no chance and that he was going to take the whole party down with him. And he had coattails.
Well, and it doesn't help when you have Republican Party, you know, established people that are saying that, you know, they're not voting for him, they can't back him, and, you know, it's hard to think that people are not going to listen to all these politicians, but, you know, let's be honest, they're pretty much as bad as the media, too. They flip-flop on whatever's, you know, more convenient for them at the time, for the most part.
Yeah, and I think the Never Trump movement, me being included, we projected our ideological black and white stance on Trump on a lot of other people that don't look at things that way. So your average voter, I mean, they might be conservative, but they might not understand all of the details of what being conservative means, textbook speaking. And a lot of the Never Trump people are real hardcore, philosophically, intellectual purity type conservatives. And most people who might vote for a conservative, you know, couldn't care less about most of that stuff. And so we were projecting a lot of our, you know, non-negotiables onto other people, whereas they're obviously they're not non-negotiables for most of the people who are in the base. So there's a lot of projecting in the Never Trump movement, and that's why I think guys like Ben got it wrong. Right. That you can't start to believe your own propaganda at some point. So.
Did the media did they miss just how much the American people hates Hillary Clinton?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt. Yeah.
And I mean, Obama had a coalition that wasn't ever the Democrats' coalition. It was Obama's coalition. Like, he was a kind of an anomaly candidate that, Hillary definitely is not. She didn't have the energy. She didn't have the support. And there's probably people who, I mean, we know, there's not probably, from the returns, we know that there's people that turned out for Obama that just straight up didn't go and vote for anybody for Hillary. So.
Yeah. And, me personally, I think the Black Lives Matter movement just before these elections in the prior months, that was supposed to inspire more, hate toward conservatives and stuff like that. But I think what it did is it riled the conservatives up more. And it did bring to light, like you said, the movements with the lesbian gay movement and stuff like that. And it brought to light, like, hey, you guys are shoving this down our face. I don't hate black people. Like, why are you saying we all hate black people, or, stuff like that. And it really did bring some people who I know that weren't going to vote because they didn't believe in voting for somebody like Trump. And it inspired them to vote because they didn't want Hillary.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on the reaction to Trump's win? The media meltdown was just, like you said, Aaron, it was delicious.
Yeah, still drinking that up.
I thought it was appalling. I really thought it's really terrible. And not just the media, but, I mean, the liberals in general, just their entitlement attitudes. And it really made me think of my daughter. Mm-hmm. And this was her first year she could vote, and it was really cool, like, to see that she could vote. But, she played on and was a member of a state championship basketball team. And one year they went to state and they lost. And yes, they cried, but they didn't throw any temper tantrums, and, then they won and they didn't shove it down anyone's throats. But, these people, they didn't win, and they're out there destroying their neighborhoods, destroying their towns. And it's like, they didn't get their trophy, so they're going to tear their cities apart, and it doesn't make sense.
Right. This is what happens when everybody gets participation trophies. They don't know. They don't know how to handle losing.
And you got to be a little bit. I mean, of course, when Obama got elected twice, since conservatives don't have that. I mean, we're not street protesters and that sort of thing, so we don't have a lot of those types of people in our movement. But it was pretty panicky when Obama got elected, especially the first time. And then I remember in 2012 when he got reelected, like, we're having to have prayer meetings and stuff because, I mean, it almost felt like, the brown shirts were coming to our church or something like that, the way some people were reacting. So that's cyclical human psychology there. When you put all of your faith in these politicians who, I mean, even if Trump gets a third of his agenda through, I'll be surprised, and these people are acting like everything he said on the campaign trail is now definitely going to happen. And if that were true, then we wouldn't have our guns and all that other stuff that we were afraid of with Obama. So it's all cyclical and people overreacting, and the Super Bowl's coming up pretty soon. Everybody will forget about it. Probably.
Go Cowboys.
Yeah.
All right. And speaking of the agenda, when we come back, we're gonna look at get some reaction to some of Trump's proposals for his first days of his presidency and his first 100 days. That's coming up right after this, right here on Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi, I'm Paul Lathrop. I'd like to talk with you about the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. As many of you know, you'll likely have to win 2 fights if you have to use your gun in self-defense. The first fight is the gunfight itself. The second fight is the fight to clear your good name through the legal system. You don't need to draw your gun to find yourself in a legal battle for your life and freedom. Even if you do everything right, you may still be prosecuted, which could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. The Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network is an official sponsor of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and they will completely take that worry away by giving you financial assistance and legal assistance if you have to use your gun in a legitimate self-defense situation. In my case, it was $12,500 just to get out of jail and get the attorney started. Don't let an overzealous anti-gun prosecutor make your life miserable because you chose to legally defend yourself. Sign up at armedcitizensnetwork.org for only $135 for the first year and discounted renewals. Or you can call 360-978-5200 and just tell them Paul sent you.
Welcome back to Armed Lutheran Radio, our special post-election roundtable with Mia Anstine, Aaron Israel, and Sergeant Bill. All right, so we're going to look at some of the things that President-elect Trump, I haven't gotten used to saying that yet, has proposed for his first day in office and his first 100 days. He's got a pretty ambitious plan that he's laid out, and I want to get your thoughts. The first one, in his first day in office, he suggests he's going to propose a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. That sounds like pandering a little bit to me. I don't think that's going to happen, but what do you guys think?
I think it'd be great, but I think that's about as far as it'll go.
I think if he actually goes and fights for that, that'll be a good sign, because McConnell's already said that it's a non-start. So if he's got to know that half of these proposals he's got, from the border wall to reciprocity and all that kind of stuff, is going to take a fight. So, I mean, I think it's cool that he's saying that his number one thing is the one that's like the most improbable. So maybe if he goes in and fights for it, even if he loses, I mean, I think that'll set a good precedent. But like you, I mean, I'll be surprised if it happens.
Yeah, it seems to me as though he's trying to go after the establishment there. Mm-hmm. And as you're saying, I don't know how far he'll get with it, but it is interesting because that's why a lot of people voted for him.
Right. I think I suspect he's playing to that sort of anti-establishment sentiment, and yep, first thing we're going to do is we're going to drain the swamp, and so that kind of makes sense. I'm going to skip over some of these others, get right down to actions to protect American workers. First, he's going to announce his intention to renegotiate NAFTA, or withdraw from the deal under Article 2205, and he's going to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Those are biggies.
Well, isn't it kind of ironic that hasn't Mexico already come out and said that they want to renegotiate NAFTA, or they're willing to now?
Kind of ironic.
I heard something about that, yeah.
You know, everybody was talking about how it was crazy that he wanted to do these and redo all these trade agreements, and now these other countries are going, oh, crap, he won. Yeah, we'd be willing, because we don't want to lose our trade and be, completely poor, so.
Right.
Yeah, the TPP one is huge. That was a huge sacrifice of sovereignty to these other countries, and being able to pull out of that on day one, I think that's probably the most awesome thing I heard in his first 100 days, is if we get out of that. So.
Yep. Lifting restrictions on the production, this one's for you, Aaron, lifting restrictions on the production of $50 trillion worth of job-producing American energy reserves.
I like it. That's been kind of a thing for a while now that's held back oil and gas, is not being able to drill and do fracking operations on public lands. Mm-hmm. And really what they've done is just they've held up the permit process really hard, so that even if you get approved, it costs a whole lot of money and stuff to get to that point. And just streamlining that process, I think, is going to be huge for some of these shale plays, and I think that's a move in the right direction.
Absolutely. On the first day, I'll take an additional following 5 actions to restore security and the constitutional rule of law. Direct shot at Hillary Clinton. Cancel every unconstitutional executive action, memorandum, and order issued by President Obama. I'm stand up and cheer for that.
Yeah,
Amen.
Me too.
Yeah.
Shout from the rooftops. The second one's huge. Begin the process of selecting a replacement for Justice Scalia. And he says he's going to do it from the list of 20 judges that he's already put forward. So,
I think that's kind of one of the most important things in electing Trump, that a lot of people voted for him. Whether you like Trump or not, him saying that, not even him saying that, but the fact that we have a justice that needs to be replaced, and possibly another one in the near future that can really, if Hillary had gotten that chance, it would have really tipped the scales towards the anti-gun Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty huge. I think a lot of people voted for Trump just because of that reason, and it's actually pretty exciting.
Yeah, if he nominates off that list, I'm all for it. I'm hoping that he'll stick to that, and that he's ready for the fight that's going to come, even with a Republican-controlled Congress, on some of these originalist jurists, because they, the Mitch McConnells of the world are not big fans of real strict constructionists, and so those guys on his list, any one of them would be great if he's ready to fight for him in the confirmation process when the Democrats try to filibuster and all that. So that'll be good.
Yep.
Yeah. In that selection, what say does Pence have in that?
I'm sure he's got his ear.
Yeah. I would hope.
I think that's real important.
Yep. Canceling all federal funding to sanctuary cities.
Yay!
I knew Bill would like that.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't know if Dallas is considered a sanctuary city. It is. But it's unbelievable, the I can't say that word, recidivism. There it is. The repeat offenders that we get that, they either should get deported or don't, or even if they do, they end up coming back, and it's pretty ridiculous.
Yep. Well, the next one is I'm good with up to about the middle where he gets to the "and" part. Begin removing the more than 2 million criminal illegal immigrants from the country, and this is where it kind of worries me, cancel visas to foreign countries that won't take them back.
Yeah, that's where the whole how do we do this thing comes into play, because if we're like going beyond the self-deportation, which if he gets serious about immigration, a lot of people will leave on their own because they don't want to get arrested, that sort of thing. But if you're really going to get rid of the 200 million people, I mean, the idea of this deportation force and stuff he said in the media during the primaries and stuff, it seems kind of far-fetched to me. And the whole visa thing, just like you have misgivings about it, like how's that going to work, I mean, it just, I'm looking to see more specifics on that, because it sounds really good when he says it, but how are you going to get the funding for it, and who's going to do it? Because I know that the Border Patrol and ICE isn't big enough to make it happen, so it'll be interesting.
It can be done pretty easily, actually, Aaron.
Yeah.
When you have big cities where they don't allow the deportations, where ICE has their hands tied behind their back, and they don't allow local law enforcement to actually do what they're supposed to do, and then ICE handles them from there. If that changes, just that alone, it'll handle a lot of those problems.
So local law enforcement could do that?
Yeah.
That's good.
If I arrest somebody tomorrow at work, and he's an illegal immigrant, and he commits a felony, or say he's got a criminal past, or whatever they're going to have as their standard for that, he gets stamped deportation, and Trump says, hey, ICE, you can't, there's no more sanctuary cities, ICE, you can't enforce this, and we're doing all this stuff, Border Patrol, et cetera, I can actually go up to my county jail, take them straight over to the ICE agent, and go, hey, Merry Christmas, here you go, here's your first customer. And instead of saying, well, let me write down his info and go ahead and process him, he will take him and do his job for a change instead of just file the report.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was under the same impression as Aaron that we didn't have enough people that could actually do that.
Well, they might have to beef up ICE a little bit, and maybe even Border Patrol for, the stuff he's talking about. But most of the identifying, illegal immigrants is not going to be going door to door. It's going to be, hey, Joe Officer does a traffic stop on somebody and you don't have ID? Well, what do you have? Oh, you have a consular card from Mexico? Okay. Are you here legally? They run them. They find out if they are or not, find out their status, and handle it from there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that too.
We're not allowed to do that right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because listening to like radio and DFW the past few days with the people who are reacting to the immigration stuff specifically, like I heard one guy on the radio say like that he was like crying because the person who gives him his taquitos at Whataburger thinks she's going to get deported. Well, I mean, maybe if she has like a possession stop or something like that, and she actually gets arrested, then yeah, but it's not like they're going to go to Whataburger and do an I-9 check and start, bussing people out. Yeah, you'll get most of them through the Sergeant Bills of the world who pick them up for crimes. So.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, it may end up being that way where employers have to show that their employees have legal status, but that's not happening tomorrow or a year down the road.
That's not going to be a day one thing, no.
No.
And knowing Trump, he'll probably give some kind of a pathway to citizenship thing too, where if you've been here X amount of time and you go through this process or whatever. But yeah, I think people are reacting on that.
The fifth point was this is the so-called Muslim ban that the media and the left really blew completely out of proportion, suspending immigration from terror-prone regions where vetting cannot safely occur. And the media and the left blew this up, tried to make it sound like we were just going to ban everybody because they're Muslim and only because they're Muslim.
Well, I think he should do that. And, I mean, the whole reason behind why I say that is every one of those Middle Eastern countries do not take immigrants.
Yep.
At all, period.
Right.
Saudi, nothing. Qatar, nothing. Any of them, nada, zero. They're not taking them. So why should we? That's their people. That's their religious faith. That's their neighbors, and they're not taking them.
Yeah, and we're already supposed to be doing what he calls extreme vetting anyway. So really it'll just be like, hey, the things we're supposed to do before we let people just come in here, let's actually do them.
Let's get back to doing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes up and down the line for things that we have all these laws, but a lot of things are not enforced, and that's where he should start out, is enforcing what's already there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it's not like, we're talking about taking in tens of thousands of these Syrian refugees, and how can you vet them when their address is a hole in the ground now?
Right.
All right, so first 100 days, there's just a couple I wanted to get your opinions on. Repealing Obamacare. Every jot and tittle. I want it gone.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is, one of my best friends was under Obamacare for the last, I think, year and a half, and he just got canceled.
But they couldn't do that.
Affordable Care Act just canceled his policy, and he had to go to the emergency room last night because he was in extreme pain, and they turned him away because he didn't have insurance.
Yeah. I've had similar. I had great insurance until that started up, till Obamacare came along, and then now since I'm self-employed, I have to report my bank income every month, and so it switches my insurances depending on my income. And then this summer, my number's gone. I don't even exist anymore. So,
what?
Oh, thanks.
Wow.
So I'm really hoping that something can be done about that.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, if he accomplishes getting rid of Obamacare, or at least getting it into Congress and starting the process of repealing it in the first 100 days, I think that will be, if that's the only thing he does as president, like, I'm giving him a high five.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the worst thing to come out of Obama's administration, so I'm all for that.
Yep.
And I'd be willing to bet the insurance companies would be happy for it to go, too, because they've been hit really hard by it. I'm sure they would be more than happy to have people coming back to pick their own insurance company and have some decent rates and plans and everything.
And a lot of them lined up with Obamacare because they thought it was going to be a big benefit for them. And now they've found out it's not, like the rest of us found out, it's not anywhere near affordable. It's nothing like they sold it to us.
Yeah, the one thing to be leery about with his Obamacare stance, though, is that he keeps using the word replace. So the fight might be what he wants to replace it with and what Congress wants to replace it with, because there's a lot of people, even with a Republican-controlled government, that are big fans of subsidies and moving towards single-payer and all that. So if they replace it with something that's just as bad, then we won't have gained anything. But hopefully there's some free market solutions and things like that come out of this, because that's the part that scares me, is when they talk about replace, but you don't hear what we're replacing it with,
Yep.
So.
Yep. The End Illegal Immigration Act fully funds the construction of a wall on our southern border, with the full understanding that the country, Mexico, will reimburse the United States for the full cost of such a wall. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
It doesn't need to happen. I mean, because let's be honest, a wall is just a temporary barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You can climb over it. You tunnel under it. It's not the wall. It's what the wall represents. And if you, instead of spending that money on the wall, you spend it on
enforcing the border.
An actual border enforcing entity that is not having their hands tied behind their back, then, now you're talking.
Yep.
And something like that dog right on the border. That would help.
A whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
One every 20 yards. The Restoring National Security Act. I know Bill and Aaron, you guys are veterans, and by the way, thank you for your service. God bless you. I appreciate it. We're just celebrating Veterans Day, so thank you to all of our veterans. The Restoring National Security Act rebuilds our military by eliminating the defense sequester and expands military investment and provides veterans with the ability to receive public VA treatment or attend the private doctor of their choice.
I like it.
Sounds good.
I think
you know
that
what?
is great.
I have a great idea to fix the VA. Make that the medical care coverage and all the doctors that everyone in Congress has to see.
Right.
Then something would happen really fast.
Yeah,
make
but it
them
works
wait
real
line.
good then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, when we come back on our special post-election roundtable with Sergeant Bill, Aaron Israel, and Mia Anstine, we're going to be talking about guns and gun rights right here on Armed Lutheran Radio.
So you have your concealed carry permit or license to carry. Now what? Now you need a good holster. Not one of those cheap neoprene prophylactic holsters you can buy in the big box stores. You need a holster custom built for the firearm you intend to carry every day. Check out cooksholsters.com. Made in the USA, Cooks holsters are available in a wide range of colors and designs for inside the waistband or outside waistband carry. They carry a lifetime warranty against defects and a 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Visit www.cooksholsters.com and use the promo code ARMEDPODCAST and take 15% off everything in the store. You put in the time and effort to legally carry a firearm for personal protection. Protect your firearm with a custom holster from cooksholsters.com.
Welcome back to our special post-election roundtable with Sergeant Bill, Aaron Israel, and Mia Anstine. For our final segment, we're going to talk about guns. Gun rights were a major difference between the candidates in the campaign. The NRA and anti-gun groups spent a crapload of money and political capital in this election. A couple of anti-gun state initiatives were passed, but Trump won. What does all this mean for gun rights in the next 4 years? Anybody have any thoughts?
I just hope he leaves well enough alone. I don't have a specific law that I hope he passes, because I think anytime you start talking about that stuff in Congress, they start coming up with really bad ideas. So I would be happy if we just leave things alone and he doesn't add anything to the big pile of regulations that are already there. And being the smaller government guy I am, if he just doesn't touch it, I'm going to be happy.
We're still going to have this fight. We've still got the Gabby Giffords and the Brady Bunch and all of them who are fighting to make changes at the state level and through ballot initiatives. So we're still going to have those fights on our hands.
Yep.
Mia, one thing that you would like to see put forward, one piece of legislation?
Well, I kind of feel the same way, that I wish it could just be left alone. But as you said, it's not going to be left alone. And coming from the other end of the Gabby Giffords and all these, every towns and stuff, if something had to be put out there, I mean, again, there's current laws that aren't enforced that need to be enforced, but I think it would be really great if kids had to learn safety. I mean, that's something that if something had to be put out there, that's what I would say, is to educate everybody.
That's a good point. A good thought. I hadn't thought about that. Bill, you got an idea?
Yeah, a few years back, they did a national concealed carry for law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if I travel around the country, my police ID is my concealed carry permit. I think that should be for everyone. And Trump has said where he'd like to do a national concealed carry reciprocity. And that, to me, would be outstanding, because not only would it be simpler and easier for people to protect themselves and not worry about, am I across some imaginary line, but it would stop silly things like people who did accidentally cross that silly line and are in a non-free state, and then they get arrested and go to jail and have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and days in jail to try and clear themselves from not really doing anything wrong.
The Shanine Allens of the world.
Exactly.
Yep. How about
that's my idea.
How about the National Hearing Protection Act?
I think it's a good thing. I don't think it would get passed. I mean, it might, but it's I don't know. I have mixed kind of views on those, on suppressors and silencers and all that stuff. I mean, they're neat, they're interesting, but if you've ever shot any guns with them, it depends on the velocity of your bullets. They're still going to be loud.
Yeah.
It's not like in movies where it goes psst, and that's your, that's your suppressed 45, supersonic plus P. It doesn't do that. It still makes a lot of noise. It's still loud. And even if you do get like a little 22 and suppress it down to, subsonic, really low it's still going to hear the action of the gun. It's It's silly because for me, I'm law enforcement and a competition shooter. Well, you can't really draw a gun with a suppressor on it from a holster.
Right.
So I can't use it at work, and I can't use it in a competition. So when am I going to use it? Plinking in my backyard so my neighbors don't hear me?
Well,
okay.
Yeah, that's why.
When you're deer hunting.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the things that, like, back in North
But
Carolina,
it's still
for
gonna be
example.
really loud.
Well, the thing is with deer hunting, I have friends who would like to have it because they will lose an earplug, forget earplugs, stuff like that when you're out in the field, or just disturbing other animals around. It's not so much for being sneaky or something like that, but more for hearing protection.
Well, I'd get rid of the whole NFA altogether, but yeah, that's definitely a piece where I think you could make some traction.
Yep, I'm with you there. Yep.
I mostly agree with that, except for, I'm like I said, most everything I think of when it comes to firearms, I think of it in two different ways, or maybe three different ways: defending myself and my family, my job, and then shooting for fun. And even when I was in the military, a full auto gun doesn't really have a whole lot of uses in any of those. So, and that's really what the NFA in 1934 was really supposed to be. All the other stuff they just tacked on. So keep the NFA, just untack the SBSs, the SBRs, and the suppressors, and then, life is good.
Right.
Right. All right. So, final thoughts on your hopes for the next 4 years. What do you think? What do you hope is going to happen? Mia, let's start with you.
Well, I really hope that our religious freedoms don't get attacked any more than they already are. I know I tend to look at Second Amendment and stuff like that, but really a lot of religious freedoms are getting attacked more than the media portrays. They don't let people know what's going on. And, our rights to pray wherever we want, our rights to go to church, stuff like that, what our pastors can say at church, what they can say when they're not at church, and all of that. I really hope that that we can stop that, because really that's already rolling, and I'm really hoping that we can it goes back to the Constitution and how it's being interpreted, and hopefully Trump can help preserve the Constitution, and with the Supreme Court justices and stuff like that. That's really what I've been praying for, and we'll see what happens.
Aaron?
I just want government to get smaller. That's what I hope will happen. It's the Republicans in the past two Republican administrations have been about efficiently managing the Leviathan, and I want the Leviathan to die. So I want it to get smaller, and I hope that he picks people who are going to make government smaller and are not just going to try to do it better than the Democrats, but get rid of it. And I think we'll know a lot in the next 90 days, because the people who really make things happen in the executive branch are all the cabinet positions, all the secretaries of this and that. And if he picks the same people that were in his campaign to be his cabinet, then we're going to have a fight on our hands. But hopefully he puts all the grudges and things from the primary aside, and we get some people who are in there to shrink government and do things for liberty and we the people. And I hope that's what we get. So we'll see here pretty quick.
Yeah. Bill, let's finish with you.
First and foremost, I hope we get some pro-gun judges on the Supreme Court, because that, to me, this election was not so much who was going to be running our country in the next 4 years, but what the Supreme Court and how they were going to interpret laws and court cases for many generations, decades to come. Whether my kids were going to be able to do the same things that I can do and enjoy the shooting sports and being able to defend themselves and all those kind of things. I really, because I see so much stuff going on over the last couple of years, 8 years, I guess, since Obama's been in the office. The only time I've seen our country really come together in the last 10 years or so is when 3,000 people got killed in New York in 9/11. I don't want something like that to happen again, to bring us back together as Americans. It actually kind of sickens me to hear people call themselves fill-in-the-blank Americans. I mean, everyone has a background. Everyone has heritage. But everyone who's here should consider themselves Americans. That used to be very important to people in this country in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Somewhere in the 60s, it started changing. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it's in 2000s, it's gotten worse. And I don't know what it would take to bring our country back together. without trying to sound too callous, I hope all the whining and crying will end soon, and people will come to the realization that, hey, look, this is what we have. Trump is going to be our president. We need to deal with that, work with it, bring our country back together, and, God, to steal his phrase, make us great again. Yep. And to do that, we need to do everything that both Mia and Aaron said. We need to, get everybody on the same track and stop having all this big government and all these issues and all this corruption and all this garbage, and just push it aside and move on.
Well said. All right. Sergeant Bill Silvia, Aaron Israel, Mia Anstine, thank you all for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening, and tune in again for another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, and TuneIn. This podcast is made possible by Cook's Holsters and contributions from listeners like you.